Hi, and welcome to our June Learning Series session of 2025. My name is Perla Corsier, and I work in the Office of Good Government as a Training and Education Coordinator here at the North Dakota State Auditor's Office. We are live here from the Capitol today and excited to talk about what a state revolving fund loan is and how to apply for one. Just a note, there will be a Q&A session at the end, so please use the Q&A button to submit questions at any time during the hour. It is located in the top right corner next to the Leave button. We will answer those at the end. If you would like to follow along and take notes, please download or print the PowerPoint that was attached to the email, and I sent that out yesterday in case you're wondering where that's at. Today, walking us through the process of applying for a state revolving fund loan is the expert DeAnn Ament. DeAnn is the Executive Director of the North Dakota Public Finance Authority since 2010, following her role as Business Manager since 1998. Previously, she was an Audit Supervisor at Eide Bailly, a CPA, and a Chartered Global Management Accountant. She holds an accounting degree from Minnesota State University Moorhead and is a Dakota School of Banking graduate. So we have a lot of things to get through today, so I'll pass it over to DeAnn.
Good morning, everybody. I am DeAnn, and I am here to walk you through the State Revolving Fund loan application. A little bit about the State Revolving Fund program. There are actually two State Revolving Fund programs. There's the Clean Water Program, which you would think would be the water that you drink, but it's actually the water that you flush. And then there's also the Drinking Water Program, and that is the water that you drink. And so, but there's only one loan application, and we'll get going here with the agenda. And I guess the other thing I should also mention about the program is that it's a joint effort. And I know that it gets confusing because it's a joint effort between multiple state agencies. The Public Finance Authority serves as the financial aspect of the program, reviewing the loan applications, taking care of making sure that there's enough money for the program. We actually go out and issue bonds for the program. The other partner is the Department of Environmental Quality. They're the recipient of the grant funding for the program. They get federal funds from Environmental Protection Agency, and they take care of the technical and managerial aspects of the program. And then to further complicate it, the Bank of North Dakota serves as the trustee, and therefore everybody thinks they have a Bank of North Dakota loan, but it's actually the Public Finance Authority that just has them do the billing. So anyhow, we'll just go through where do we start for the program, the State Revolving Fund program. What do I need? How long does it take? And am I done now? So those are the topics that will be covered, and we'll get going with where do I start? The application process is actually a two-step application process. A couple of years ago, the state funding agencies got together and started a process called FIND, or Funding for Infrastructure in North Dakota. And it's on a platform called Web Grants, so you might hear it referred to as that as well, because why not have one name for it when you can call it FIND, Funding Infrastructure in North Dakota, or Web Grants. So that's the first step. Any infrastructure financing that's needed in North Dakota is to start there. And then the second step to access the SRF financing then involves filling out a loan application and SRF tracker. And that's where we'll spend most of our time this morning. But I'll quickly show you, this is FIND. This is where a person would log in, and that does require a North Dakota or ND login. And you can see here on the right, oops, I don't have my laser pointer up yet. This just kind of walks you through the steps for doing that. If you have an ND login for say a fishing license, you can use that. You do not need to have a special ND login to access FIND. And you can use that to access the web grants application. Once you've got your web grants application completed, the application is then reviewed by these state agencies. And then when the funding sources have determined what it's available for, and assuming that state revolving fund is one of those eligibility or eligible loan sources, then you will receive an email from the SRF program, and that's when you would respond to that you were interested in SRF financing, and you would email back and say you would like the SRF application opened up in SRF Tracker. And that's where we will get into SRF Tracker. And that too uses the ND login. And that login page looks like this. And you, again, like I said, need the ND login. Just because you have an ND login does not mean that you can get into SRF Tracker. We've got the steps again here for an ND, attaining an ND login if you don't already have one, but you do need to be set up in Tracker so you can email DEQ or PFA, and so we can get you set up in there, and then you will have access to it. We have to have you set up in SRF Tracker before you can get in there. Having an ND login does not grant you access immediately. So once you have that ND SRF Tracker access, then you will now be a Tracker user, and cities have this blue ribbon. Engineers have a green ribbon, and I have a gray ribbon. And so everybody has a little bit different view. And so if somebody's if you're talking to your consulting engineer and they don't have certain tabs that you have, so it's just important to know that there's certain things that you as a city or a water district have access to that your consulting engineers don't have access to, or that if you haven't given your consulting engineer access to an old project, they're not going to be able to see certain things, but you as a city user have access to all of the city information. But you can see across the screen or that you have access to all the SRF initiatives, the general projects. So if the city did a project, DEQ has been uploading old projects, so you would have access to those old projects files that would be important, like for the lead service lines, though I think we're discovering that a lot of those things weren't necessarily available, and thus the lead service line inventories now. PAR grant projects, your audit reports, and then documents, and then the users. You'll be able to see who all the city has who all in the city has access as users. So that's just a little bit about the navigation that's available to the city users. So what do you need when you're going to be filling out the SRF loan application? We'll go into that here. So first, when you go into, now we're going into that SRF initiative tab that I had showed you, and that changes your views of what you have available once you go into that SRF initiative, or, well, you will change it. You'll see you've got here, you have your list of SRF projects that the city has done over time. And you'll see that there's a new one down here, and it says start. And that's where you'll go to start your loan application. And we will step through virtually every single line in a loan application. And this presentation, although it's out there, I think under North Dakota League of Cities right now, will be available out on the PFA's website and you have had it emailed to you. So if you're filling out a loan application a year from now and you wonder what goes in that spot, this resource will be available to you to go check and see what goes in that spot. So across here are all the different tabs that need to be completed to before you submit a loan application. And I've conveniently then labeled each section by the tab at the top, so you can hopefully quickly reference that in the future if you have questions on each section. So if you're getting bored and you wonder how far we're making it through this webinar, when we get to tab H, you know we're near the end, and you can wake up for the closing of this presentation. So we'll kick it off with section A, just the general information for the loan application. And that's a really, really easy section. You only have one slide to listen to here, and very, very little information needs to be completed on this slide. Here, all we're asking for is who is your bond counsel. Bond counsel is just a fancy name for who is the attorney that's going to prepare these bond documents. That can't be your city attorney, because oftentimes your city attorney won't ever prepare bond documents other than in one instance. And so we want to use somebody that's experienced with this. And so we do have out on our PFA website a list of bond counsel, which over time has been reduced to there's only 2 bond counsel in the state of North Dakota. And this is often missed, but just make sure you get that spot filled in. And then if you happen to be doing refinancing, which doesn't happen too often, there's spots here to fill in when the original debt was issued and the date that it was issued. And just know that the state revolving fund program has pretty strict requirements of what can be refinanced. It's really limited to rural development loans that can be refinanced, because it has to be water and sewer related, and it has to have met the federal requirements that were in place at that time. So it doesn't happen too often that there is refinancings that are eligible for the state revolving fund program. So we're now on to section B, and section B is the funding information. And here what we're asking for, and a lot of times some of the information will be filled out. If I'm the one that has opened up the loan application, I a lot of times take this information from that FIND application that was filled out, and we'll fill in the whether that was clean water funding that's requested. If I see that the loan term's been filled out on the FIND application, I'll put that in. If there's going to be drinking water requested, I'll put that in. If there's the Bank of North Dakota Infrastructure Revolving Fund information, I'll fill that in as well. When you click into that, when you're going to complete that part of the application, if I put a 30-year term and you only want a 20, you can switch that loan term. And then here's the important piece. You need to show where your city is going to be repaying this. Are you going to be using your sewer revenues to repay it, your city sales tax, special assessments? If you're going to be using a combination, what I recommend is, say you're going to have $100 million, or I'm not sure what amount I had put in there, then I recommend splitting that amount. That gives me a hint, or that you're going to have a split between water revenues and city sales tax, and then you're going to do a part of it as special assessments. So that would be a way to indicate that you're having multiple securities securing this bond issue. And then there's a spot for other funding sources, because we want to show the complete cost of the project. We don't want just what you want a loan for. We want to see the total project costs. So you can fill in your loan piece if you've got additional loans funding the project, And you can also fill in your grant piece. So if there's Department of Water Resource cost share, you can fill in that piece. We do have a spot for potential loan forgiveness. Just keep in mind that SRF Tracker is still in its first version. We are hopefully going to get some enhancements and get this loan forgiveness piece working, but at this point in time, it is not functioning the way we want it to be functioning. So then we're getting into the repayment section, and this is probably one of the longer sections, and it also contains some information that needs some refinement. As I indicated, that this is our first iteration of SRF Tracker, and it needs some improvements. So for whatever reason, repayment information, this secondary source of security got stuck here, and I really do want it on the funding information, but it's still stuck over here. So we have some workarounds in here. If you have a secondary source of security, you can click yes, but then there's no way to describe that secondary source of security. So what I would recommend for that would be to maybe do a Word document and then upload that into another section, an unused section in another place until we get an enhancement done that allows you to upload it in this section, or that we have a drop-down box where you can explain that there's GPT that you're going to use along with the city sales tax, or whatever combination that you might be doing along with your water revenues or that type of thing. But be sure to use that box if you do plan to use a secondary source, and feel free to upload another document elsewhere. And then on top of it, it'd be helpful if you maybe labeled that document secondary source of security, because then we know what it refers to if it is in the improvement bond section, and you did not on that earlier section B funding information have improvement bonds as a source of repayment. So moving on to the next section in C, there's a part called annual operation maintenance costs. And as you can see there, it says select cost type. And when you click on that, then it opens up a row. And then there's a drop down box, and there's 6 different options you can choose from. And you're welcome to put as many as apply to your project. So if you are doing a water main replacement project and your depreciation is going to increase $100,000 because it's a citywide water main replacement, then you would fill in that your depreciation is going to increase $100,000. And if that's going to cause your replacement reserves to go up $20,000, then you would add that line in as well. A water main replacement project probably would not cause your operations to increase, so it probably would cause them to decrease, because you're not having, well, that probably wouldn't cause any change in your operations, so you'd probably put a 0 there. Your maintenance would probably go down, so you could probably have this negative 10,000 there. Your repairs would probably go down, so you probably have a negative 20,000 there. Your other probably would be a 0. And so that's what that column is intended to. If you didn't have a clean water project, you wouldn't have to fill anything in. But that's how this annual operations and maintenance costs, or that's how this is intended to be filled out. And then these totals then would show up after you have populated all of those. And then you have the option that if you goof up or want to delete something, you can go back in and make those changes. And if you have other, there's a spot to populate the other, and then you can see where the totals then will show up down in that box. Then moving along on that same section, there's an area for largest users and bulk users. So in the largest users, we ask for the date that the largest users is from. And then you can populate the name of the user, the percentage of the total, and then the revenue from the most recent fiscal year. And you just add, and it asks for the top 5 users. And then for the bulk users, you can upload a list. And what we're looking for in the bulk users is if there's a city or a water district that has a contract to buy water, and there's a population that's receiving water that's not captured in the population of the applicant. That's really helpful to know that additional population, and then also that additional revenue that's being received from that bulk user. And then also same with if there's an industrial user that has a contract and the revenues that's being generated from that bulk user's contract. If there is no bulk user, there's a box you can see down here that can be checked, and then there's no need to upload anything to that section. Then moving on, we get into rate history and projections. And this is required if the revenues of the water fund or the revenues of the sewer fund are being pledged, then we need this section completed. And you have an option here that you can upload a spreadsheet that contains this information. So if you already keep this information in a spreadsheet that's similar to what we're asking for, then there's no need to fill out this table that's up here. You can just upload the spreadsheet. We also have a template that is, when you see this blue here, you could go in and open up that template and complete the template and just upload that. If you don't like that option, then we ask for the information in the table to be uploaded. And as you can see, what we're asking for, if it's a drinking water loan you're applying for, we would like this water rate history completed. We want the 2 prior years, the current year, and the 2 projected years of information. We want the number of connections. We want the residential monthly base rate, and we want the commercial monthly base rate. And then we do want what you project your water rate will be in the next year and the future 2 years ahead. And then same if it's going to be a sewer project that is going to be repaid with the sewer rates, we want that same type of information completed for the sewer fund. And we also know that there's going to be some anomalies out there because we do fund landfill projects for leachate control. And so I know that sometimes we have to kind of punt and come up with some different scenarios. So don't be afraid to reach out. I don't want you to fill out this table with information that may or may not, might take you a whole bunch of time to complete and then find out that I need something different. Reach out if you have a project that doesn't really fit in with water or sewer. We have done different things depending on the circumstances. So just let me know and we can work through what will work best for the type of project. And then if it is, if you do have an audit and your water and sewer fund are combined, we do need, and you're pledging, you want to just pledge the water, but your water and sewer fund are combined. I will need both of these tables filled out because they're combined. I have to look at both funds because I can't look at them separately. So that is going to be an instance where I'll need both the water and the sewer tables filled out. And then often missed is kind of snuck in here, we ask for the rate schedules. So we want to see what your current water rates and sewer rates are. And so, and if you don't have a posted schedule that you post on your website or that you hand out to new customers showing that your water base rate is $25 and your volume charge is $7.80 per 1,000 gallons, then we would like the minutes that show when the city council approved the current rates and have that uploaded here at that spot. Okay, the next section, like I said, this is the longest section. So if you're pledging your city sales tax, this would be the spot that we would want this city sales tax ordinance that for the city sales tax that's being pledged. We would want that uploaded in this location. And like I mentioned earlier, if you had a secondary pledge and you weren't pledging city sales tax, this would be a spot you could sneak extra information in if you weren't pledging your city sales tax. So I'll mention those little things along the way. And then if you have a water, sanitary or storm sewer project, these are the only two spots that are needed for the special assessments. They just require a resolution creating the district and a resolution approving the engineer's report and cost estimate. So those two resolutions would need to be uploaded in this spot and in this spot. These other three resolutions are required if it's not a health or safety project, and BND would be co-funding. We would need those resolutions and they would need to be uploaded into these three spots. And again, another hint, those are a great place to put extra items that we would ask for, such as secondary pledge of information or something that I forgot to ask for a spot on this loan application that I often have to go back and ask for. We do ask for a document asking for the number of parcels that are being assessed. And then this item is helpful for knowing when to have the first principal payment on the debt schedule is when will the specials be certified to the county, what month and date. So this document could be uploaded to one of these three spots. So that is a helpful item, and that could be into one of those spots. So whew, we made it through the longest section in the loan application. And now on to, I believe, the middle section of the loan application, section D, debt. And outstanding debt. What we're looking for in this section should be all of the debt. And for most cities and water districts, it's probably easiest to do it as of the fiscal, the audit year end, which for the cities would be 12/31. Most water districts, it would also be 12/31. I know there's a few that have a fiscal year end. And we want to see all the bonds, all the debt included, not just for the cities, not just the water fund or not just the sewer fund, but we want to see all the outstanding debt included on that schedule. And there are on this section too, This area here, do you have debt? Yes or no? And then it allows you to enter, I believe, up to 6 or 7 lines. If that's not enough, then you can attach a spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet should include all of this information, all these headings that are in the area that you could just fill in the lines on the boxes in the application. So tried to make it easy, but if you exceed that 5 or 6 bonds, or if you have a work paper, and I highly encourage, if you have a work paper that has all that information, go ahead and just upload that. That should be the easiest thing to do, and include that in this section. Then the next section, or in there, it says plan debt, and if you plan debt in the future, click yes. This is an area I want to expand on in future enhancements. It just says yes, and then has the type of debt and estimated amount, and it leaves off the important piece of what's the planned debt for. So something for us to add on. And then the very last section just asks if there have been any defaults, and thankfully that's pretty easy in North Dakota to keep up on. Thankfully, there's been none in the last 20 years that I'm aware of. So that's a pretty easy one to check on. And if there are any, it would make the bond buyer and all the other news pretty quickly. So, and those borrowers would have a pretty hard time borrowing again if they did default on any of their debts. So, and that is one slide for that section. So another quick and easy, and hopefully you're staying awake for it. And we're moving on to section E, the economic and social information. Fun stuff, interesting facts I always find this section interesting. So in this section, we are looking for population. This one has a little bit of a glitch. It wants both the water and the sewer system population filled in, and that's something that'll have to be fixed in upcoming releases. But so just, it's fine, fill it in, and we know that that needs to be fixed. And then once your census population for each of the three years, or 3 decades, I should say here. And then the next is the school enrollment. If your city does not have a school district, please fill in the school district that most of the students in your city would attend. And you can see we do have a link right here to the DPI information. You should be able to grab that information so you can populate that, put the name of the school district in here, and then put in the grades served, whether it's pre-K through grade 6 or 7 through 12 or whatever it's served by that school. Populate that information. It really gives us an idea of, we can see whether the number of students is increasing, decreasing. Just is nice to see what the enrollment's doing and what the population is doing in these areas, and how that plays with a 30-year loan or a 20-year loan term. If you're a water district, what we ask for in those areas, I know, is extra work, but again, helpful for us to know. You may need to take a spreadsheet and collect a little bit more information about the cities and the school districts in your area, and accumulate the totals for both the population and the school districts in your area. and include those totals to come up with that information. So, and then I believe you have the option. I struggled to be able to be a user that way, so I took my guess on that. Okay, on to the next here. So here we ask for the 3 largest employers in the political subdivision. I know sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to find that information, but I know it's North Dakota. You should be able to probably make a phone call and get at least a guesstimate of the number of employees. I know Job Service sometimes has that information out on their website as well. But it does require, in order to submit the application, at least 3 being filled in there. And then in this box here, we ask that if you're aware of any changes, if there's a major business that's closing, that you put that information in that box. If there's nothing that you're aware of, you do need to at least populate it with no changes in order to be able to submit the application. And that concludes that section. And we're getting towards the end. Section F for financials. What everybody's been waiting for. So just a little bit of a guidance as to how each of these spots works, because it's kind of a little different. This one holds multiple files, so if you aren't able to combine files, it's fine to put the extra file up here because it does hold multiple files. These only hold 1 file a piece. If you put another file in there, it overrides or overwrites the previous file, and anybody that goes in there is unable to see what was overwritten. So we wouldn't know that you had something else there. So just kind of a little reminder. If you're wondering, we don't know if you had a balance sheet there and you went and put income statement or statement of revenues expenditures, but so much shorter to say profit and loss or income statement. Anyhow, so what are we looking for to be uploaded in these spots? I'm going to go through this and I'm hoping it's in a logical order, but anyhow, what we're looking for up here is the most recent month's statement of net position. And I know all of these statements can be referred to by multiple names. I did put, I believe, the most recent appropriate name and then the old names that they can be referred to as well in here too. But this should be, like, we're in June, so this could be May of 2025 statement of net position and the statement of changes, or statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in net position. Those would be what should be uploaded, what I would expect to see in this spot. And then this one should be the 2025 operating a budget that was approved by the city council and submitted to the county. That's what I would expect to upload it into those 2 spots. And this is what a current year-to-date statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in net position would look like. I know there's some confusion over that sometimes, so I wanted to just give you an example of what something good would look like. It has the revenue there, and it's got the expenditures by detail. It's got salaries and it's got benefits and all broken apart. And then some examples that don't work when we're trying to trying to look at a loan and make sure that it's got the ability to repay. A statement that just has numbers on it, that doesn't have totals, those don't work for evaluating a loan. And here's another example. I know that these are reports that probably can be used to be submitted to the newspaper to show, or submitted to your city council, but they don't work necessarily because they might have depreciation in them, and they just don't give an accurate picture necessarily of. They may only have 1 month of revenues and expenditures, and so those don't work for evaluating the ability to repay from the water and the sewer fund. So looking at the continuing down in the annual audited financial statement section in there, what goes into these spots? This would be audit reports. If the audit is complete, that should be uploaded into this spot. If the audit's not complete, then we would expect that there would be unaudited year-end financial statements uploaded down in this bottom spot, the balance sheet or the statement of revenues and the statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in net assets for all fund types would go down in this bottom spot. And again, here's an example of a balance sheet or statement of net assets, and an example of a year-to-date statement of revenues and expenditures. And again, another example of what not to upload. Again, I know that it works for some reporting that needs to be done. And again, that's where the audits go, and don't put unaudited financials there. Unaudited financials can go here and down at the bottom. And that also, these work for audits, and they also work for the audits, the state auditors audits in lieu of a audit report. So many things can be used for this, terms can be used for the same thing. And the state audit report the report in lieu of an audit, be detailed if you're applying for a loan. And that's what this is supposed to be. It didn't paste on here. It doesn't look quite the same, but that's what this is supposed to represent. Yeah, be detailed. Use the lines for payroll and insurance. Those are, all things that we would expect to see. All these expenses we would expect to see. If you put just one line for revenues and one line for expenses, that makes it really hard to use for a loan application. And on to the attachments section, the final section for the loan application. This section has examples or samples of all the documents. Everything in blue is something that can be downloaded and used as an example or a template in all of these. And the first one is the budget sheet. This budget sheet should tie to section B of the funding information. So if you've applying for clean water funding, drinking water funding, infrastructure revolving loan funding, that amount you applied for should match this budget sheet. And then that should be uploaded to that section. The certification of eligibility, that needs to be completed by the loan recipient, not by the consulting engineer, and signed by the loan recipient. It has to have original signature. I don't know that DEQ is requiring that to be sent in separately anymore, but then that just needs to be uploaded. There also needs to be a resolution of the governing body, and this is the format it needs to be in. Let's see, oops, It needs a resolution number, a governing body of applicant, a designated official authorized to execute, a legal name of applicant, a description of the project, a certificate of recording officer. And the individuals are the only ones that may submit pay requests, so you can have more than one authorized representative on this resolution, and it's actually recommended that you have more than one so that they can both sign and submit pay requests. And if somebody leaves as mayor, you need to send in a new one, an updated form. And use the downloaded version. Don't use an old copy so that you have the most recent language that we recommend in your authorized or in your resolution. And once you've completed all of those documents and uploaded them, there is the summary page. And if you've done everything right, all of these sections will be green. And this will be a dark blue, and you can hit submit. If you have sections that are red, you'll be able to toggle over them, and you'll see that there's things that need to be corrected. You can go to view, and that'll take you to that section, and you'll see there will be a description of what needs to be corrected. Once you have all these sections green, then you will be able to submit the loan application. If you are co-funding with the Bank of North Dakota, there's no need to prepare a second loan application. We will take this loan application that you just completed, and we'll give that to the Bank of North Dakota, and they will use that for the Infrastructure Revolving Loan Fund or the Water Infrastructure Revolving Loan Fund. And how long does this process take? Well, that depends on the completeness of the loan application. Once the project has been reviewed and once you get all those things turned green, it can take anywhere from 15 days to more than 60 days. The advisory committee meets usually a week before the industrial commission meets. Loans less than $2 million only need the advisory committee approval. Loans greater than $2 million need both the advisory committee and the industrial commission approval. And industrial commission meets every month. So just reach out if you have a project and want to discuss timing, and we can do our best to make sure that we meet those needs. When to apply: before the project costs are known, after bid opening. It just depends on, some city councils want to know they have a loan approved even before they open bids, and others are fine knowing that they can have that loan approved once they have an idea of how much the project costs. So it just varies from city council to city council and water district to water district. Are you done once the loan's approved? Close, but not quite. We do require that all borrowers provide audits every year that they have a loan outstanding. And very conveniently, now with SRF Tracker, you can upload your own audits each year. And we ask that you go into Tracker, and the customer can go into this audit report section and upload them. If you get an updated audit, you can delete them. The one thing that does need to happen is if your single audit report is separate from your, in the case of Bismarck, it would be from their ACFR, that you would combine the two PDFs into one and upload those together would be appreciated. And that is really the ongoing the ongoing requirement that there is after the loan is approved. from the financial aspects. And if you do need any technical assistance, we do have free technical assistance available through Midwest Assistance Program and North Dakota Rural Water Systems. They're available to help with rate analysis, preparing financial statements, board training. They also do have technical and managerial assistance available as well, and you can just reach out to DEQ or Public Finance Authority if you would ever need assistance with any of those items. And I think we made it to the end, and I am available for any questions you might have now or in the future. And there's my contact information. And thank you for the time to present. And we want to also mention, I guess, one thing that it has been popping up a lot lately is that there are SRF requirements that need to be followed. And I highly recommend that you make sure that your consulting engineer is in touch with DEQ from early on in the project. And if you don't know if your consulting engineer is in touch with DEQ, ask them. And if you want to just reach out to DEQ, feel free to and email me. I can check as well too. So again, thank you for your time.
Well, it looks like we don't have any questions today. So if you do have any questions in the future, please reach out to DeAnn with those. If you have any questions about auditing or any questions about the annual financial review forms, please reach out to me here at the Office of Good Government. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you haven't already signed up for next month's session, please go out today and register. For the month of July, we will have Jordan Wall from the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund talking about the state bonding fund and things like who's eligible, what it covers, how much it costs, and how to apply. So this session today was recorded and the link will be sent out next week along with a short survey. Please take the survey as it helps us develop tailored trainings with information that will help local governments across the state. It doesn't have to be an audit topic. It can be just topics that will help you in your position and things that you feel like you could learn more about. So please do take the survey and give us detailed answers so we can develop these trainings for you. Sign up for updates from the Office of Good Government. We send out any updates with any pertinent news out to local governments across the state. And again, if you have any questions, please contact the Office of Good Government. We hope to see you at the next session. Thank you.